In this lesson, we're going to set up these statues for our bridge. Okay, so I had noticed that we had a problem with this one statue, and it was flipping whenever we would set up our dynamics. And we go ahead and we'd simulate this out. And I started to think about what that problem could be, because it was just flipping. And whenever we start our simulation, okay, if we set this to dynamics, you just see that that is flipping upside down. Okay, and it's not doing that because dynamics is taking hold of it or it's simulating improperly. I think what is actually happening is it's because I mirrored this foot whenever I first built it. I mirrored this foot from this one. And I think what I had done is I'd actually mirrored this foot with this Mass Effects rigid body on. Okay, but mirroring objects and applying a rigid body can be a problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually delete off the Mass Effects rigid body off of this foot. And what I want to do is go ahead and reset its pivot point. Now I'm going to go to my hierarchy panel. I'm going to do Effect Pivot Only, and I'm going to center this to my object and then align this to the object itself. Okay. Now I found that if I hit Reset Pivot Point, okay, it brings it right back down to where I need it. Let's hit Effect Pivot Only to turn that off, and let's reapply our dynamics to this. Now, to do a quick test before I start running through all of the creating our physical mesh, let's just simulate this and see what this does. Okay, now you'll see that our foot is now falling properly and it's staying upright, so that was an issue that we had to deal with. So if you ever have pieces that are just flipping, go ahead and reset their pivot point. So let's go ahead and set up our mesh type to composite, and let's take our shrink wrap up to 100% so it just wraps right up to this geometry. And let's make sure we set this to concrete, and it's going to be a dynamic object. Now we need to go ahead and actually have our statues resting right on top of our towers. So what I'm going to do is just pull them down as close as I can get them without them actually penetrating through the geometry. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing for the shackles and the feet on these. Pull those down just above the tower. Okay, and do these. Pull those down. So that way they don't have very far to travel. Now let's go to our front view, just hitting F on the keyboard and then Z. And I want to go ahead and open up my selection sets, and I want to get rid of this temporary selection set because I'm going to reuse it. So let's go ahead and select the tops of these towers here. Trying not to select the actual statues. If you do, just Alt select those and that'll get rid of those. Let's create a new selection set. Let's call this temporary. Okay. Now with this temporary selection, let's go ahead and switch this over to a static rigid body. And then let's go ahead and select all of our statue objects. Let's switch these over to dynamic. Let's hit L on our keyboard, or P on our keyboard to go to our perspective view. Okay. And let's go ahead and actually simulate these statues until they rest right on top of our towers. So let's simulate this. We'll see these fall. Okay, and you'll see that the shackles kind of shake around on the ankles, and the statues are now resting right on top of these towers. So if they're resting right on top of the towers whenever the simulation starts, that means that they won't be moving fast enough to wake up. Okay, so they'll be stuck in sleep mode whenever they start. So let's stop the simulation, and let's open up our Mass Effects tools, and I'm going to go to Tools and then Capture Selected, okay, to capture those transforms. Once we've done that, let's go ahead and reset the simulation. After that's reset, you'll notice that they didn't move because they are now set right on top of the tower here. Let's go ahead and close our tools. I'm going to go to my Create panel. I've noticed that if I'm in my Modify panel and I start selecting objects, it's trying to load all the Mass Effects parameters, and that tends to slow down the machine. So if you go to your Create panel and start selecting things, it might make it go a little bit faster. Now, let's go ahead and switch over to our temporary selection, and let's change all those back to dynamic. Alright, now with this, let's go ahead and start our simulation and just check to make sure that we've got all the bugs worked out. Okay. Now this is started, and you'll see that we have a little bit of a problem. All the towers begin crumbling, and we know, let's go ahead and stop this, we know that the towers were working before. The statues were dynamic. So we know the problem's not with the towers any longer, it's the problem with the statues. And nothing should be awake at this moment. Everything is resting right on top of itself. We could check to see if anything is interpenetrating, but we use that capture transform method to make sure that the feet were sitting right on top of our tower. So we know that that can't be the problem either. So the only thing that I can think of that could be the problem, let's go ahead and reset this. The only thing that I could think that could be the problem is that something on these statues is not asleep at the start of the simulation. So let's go ahead and select this foot. Let's go to our Mass Effects tools, and let's go to the Edit panel. And you can see right here, Start in Sleep Mode is not checked. Let's check the other feet. This one's checked. Let's check the shackle. And that is not. So we want this to start in sleep mode. Let's check this foot. That looks good. Our shackle, and that needs to be checked. So I'm willing to assume that these other shackles need to be put in start in sleep mode. Okay, there we go. And check the feet, and there we go. So everything is now start in sleep mode. What is happening with the shackles, if they're not starting in sleep mode, they are actually going to be starting the chain reaction. So they're going to move a little bit whenever we first start, and they're going to start the dynamics of the feet, which will go ahead and start the dynamics at the top of the tower, all the bricks, which causes the explosion down at the bottom of the tower, causing the explosion in the rest of the bridge, and then we've just got this huge chain reaction going. Now, if everything is starting in sleep mode and nothing is moving to that minimum speed, everything should be sleeping. Okay, so let's hit play and simulate this. And you'll see that our timeline is moving and everything is now in sleep mode. So nothing is happening, and it's just waiting for something to wake everything up. So let's go ahead and stop this simulation. Let's reset. After we're reset, let's select our ball. And we can set this to kinematic. Once we've done that, let's hit play, start our simulation, and just kind of see what we get here. Alright. So now the towers are being taken out. You can see the statues are flying. You'll even see one of the shackles come off of the statue here. Okay, and everything is working as it should. So let's stop the simulation, reset it, and now I think we're ready to begin getting into creating the chains for our shackles in our next lesson. So I'll see you then.